Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this evening's live stream presentation here on my YouTube channel. For anyone who is joining in who doesn't know who I am, I'm John. I'm the tattooed historian. And I'm so happy to be joined by my friend, Dr. Jared Frederick. You may know him from Real History, and we're going to talk about real history going forward here as we talk about movies. Jared, how are you?
I'm doing quite well, getting ready for another semester. I'm wearing the appropriate t-shirt. It's in the syllabus. That's always a good place to direct people this time of year. So busy as always here in the final week of August, but it is what it is. And that's the cycle of things.
When do you start the new semester?
Tuesday, this coming Tuesday.
So you start before Labor Day. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. My duties don't start till after Labor Day. So,
okay, that's nice.
Yeah, it's a nice little break.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking forward to teaching this year? What's something in your syllabus that you're looking forward to teaching?
Oh boy, well, I'm teaching 4 classes. That's my typical course load. And I'm teaching Pennsylvania history, which is my staple course. I've taught that every single semester for over 11 years now. Wow. I'm teaching a class on the American Civil War, which is, of course, my favorite class to teach. I very much feel at home teaching that one. I'm teaching a baseball history class, which always fills up without fail, as you can very well imagine. Yeah. And I like teaching that one because it's not purely a course about statistics. It's a course about society through the lens of baseball. And so students are in for quite a surprise because baseball is the story of labor, marketing, race relations, interactions with the military and popular culture, and so much more. And then finally, I am teaching a brand new class, one that I've never taught before, and that is the history of American railroading. So that one's a little bit intimidating because I don't consider myself an avid train buff, as are many of the students in the class. I know nothing about engineering for the most part, but it's going to follow a very similar path as to the baseball one. How do railroads change society, and how are railroads a reflection of society? So I'm going to look at all that and a whole lot more.
That's awesome. So glad to hear that. And I would be definitely taking the baseball course if I was there. That sounds amazing. And you know, Pennsylvania boy growing up and idolizing the Pittsburgh Pirates, the best AAA team in Major League Baseball.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Because of Clemente. My family was a Clemente fan. So there it is. I would definitely be taking that from you.
There's a brand new documentary about Clemente coming out this month, a limited theatrical run. It's simply called Clemente. So if you're into baseball history, especially Bobby Clemente, look it up.
Yeah, definitely want to check that out. That'll be amazing. But tonight we are talking about our top 3 Cold War movies. And for everyone watching or anyone that's going to be tuning in later, I want you to know that we have not overlapped at all with our list. So you're going to get 6 Cold War movies that you're going to have to add to your list to watch. So these top 3 events are something that I really enjoy doing, and I'm so happy to have Jared along for this one because I know he's done tremendous work with so many things, but including real history. And so when I wanted to do a movie one, I wanted to ask Jared first to come on and talk about this Cold War movie one because I figured he'd have a hell of a good list. So tonight, what's going to happen? We're going to have 3 rounds of picks in ascending orders. We're going to go 3, 2, 1. You in the live chat are going to get the opportunity to vote between the rounds. It also gives Jared and I a break to talk about other things going on with his work or what is going on in his sphere of influence, if you will. And then we're going to be doing watching the chat to see what some of your picks are. Let us know what you think of our picks, but also bring your own picks in. Tell us what we missed, maybe, and maybe we'll tell you, well, that was in our top 5 or that was in our top 10. You don't know. Maybe we'll do some honorable mentions too as we go forward. But that's the way things are going to go down tonight. And I'm really, really happy to be doing this because we don't talk a lot about Cold War stuff on my channel. And even though, I remember the Cold War, so. I'm aging myself here. So some of these things hit kind of home. But for the first round, as I said, we're going to go with pick number 3 first, and I'm going to let Jared go first because he is my guest. So go ahead, my friend.
Our first one up is, in fact, my favorite movie of all time. I was first exposed to this film when I was, probably about 5 or 6 or 7 years old, caught it as a rerun, and that is Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest, which comes out in 1959. This is often heralded as one of his greatest films. It is in part overshadowed by his movie that comes out the following year. Do you know which movie that is, John?
The following year.
Yeah. Involves a shower.
Oh, now you caught me flat-footed.
Sorry. Psycho.
Psycho.
Yes,
yeah.
Psycho.
Sorry.
So how brilliant Psycho is really overshadows this one. And for those of you who haven't seen North by Northwest, I can kind of give you the 20-second snapshot. Oh, did you lose me?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Lost my picture there for a second.
Nope.
A Madison Avenue advertiser is mistakenly identified as a CIA operative, and communist agents are after him, thinking that he possesses the desired information and materials that they aspire to attain. And it is in some ways the perfect movie because it has a little bit of everything. It has comedy, it has action, it has sultry romance, which was somewhat sensational for the late 1950s. It has a murder that takes place at the United Nations building. We have the famous crop dusting scene here in the background where an assassin is chasing him with a biplane across the Great Plains. And it all culminates in a chase across the presidential faces of Mount Rushmore. And two of those were kind of the chief stipulations of why this movie was made. Alfred Hitchcock, one, wanted a murder to take place at the United Nations building and have someone run out of it. And two, he wanted there to be a chase across Mount Rushmore. He gives this premise to screenwriter Ernest Lehman, and he says, make a story out of those two stipulations. And we have one of the absolute greatest scripts of the 1950s that comes out of it. And it's such a fun and entertaining and stylish movie that people often forget the Cold War context that takes place therein. Because watching from afar, as Cary Grant goes on this North by Northwest journey across the country, as he is infiltrating accidentally this web of communist spies and trying to save his newfound love in the process, you have these cold, calculating, and indifferent academic, military, industrial complex CIA leaders who are just content to watch him become a piece of collateral damage amidst it all. And they're thinking, oh, well, you know, this at Madison Avenue schmo, at least he will deflect attention from our true life operative that is in the midst of this web of spies. So it really speaks to a calculating and indifferent and almost sociopathic interpretation of the Central Intelligence Agency that we really don't get in a lot of other movies of this time period, especially just a few years after the McCarthy scare. So it's a movie that I think really pressed some boundaries in more ways than one. I think a lot of the Cold War subplot was lost upon viewers of both then and today. But the next time you watch it, I encourage you to look at it through that historical lens. And it just makes the story all the richer as a result.
Yeah, I remember watching this movie when I was a kid, and the scene, just the chasing scenes are just amazing. And
the music,
music,
yeah,
it was a fantastic film. It is a fantastic film, and yeah, I can understand why this is in your top three. It's a great piece. So I have an interesting one for top three that a lot of people may not realize that I'm a fan of, but I saw it because one of the actors is one of my favorite actors, and I watched it years ago, and I thought this is a really good Cold War movie, this has to be in my top 3. So I went with 7 Days in May.
Mm-hmm.
I love this movie. I'm a big Burt Lancaster fan, as a lot of people know. And so this one came out in 1964. The premise is that President Jordan Lyman, who's played by Frederick March, signs a nuclear disarmament deal with the Soviet Union. But some military and political leaders do not like that fact, including General James Mattoon Scott, who is Burt Lancaster's character. He's seeking to overthrow the administration via a coup. There's a Marine Corps Colonel, Martin Jiggs Casey, who's played by Kirk Douglas there in the background. He dislikes the policy, but he doesn't believe in the overthrow of the government. So he's trying to figure out what is happening here behind the scenes, who's involved with it. And he assists in gaining some valuable information to try to stop this coup. Something that a lot of people kind of chuckle about. The director is John Frankenheimer, and he stated that General Scott was based on a mix of General LeMay and MacArthur. Mm. So we often hear about MacArthur being a political general, and there's statements about him, like, well, he wants to run for president. This guy's he's trying to get his name in the papers so that he gets political.
Egotistical.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have Curtis LeMay, who's already got a bad reputation among some, and you're blending those two together for this James Mattoon Scott in the Burt Lancaster piece. Kirk Douglas actually had dinner with John F. Kennedy when he was told about the book. And John Kennedy told him, you need to read this book. This is an amazing book. Mm-hmm. And JFK made sure to get a copy for Kirk Douglas. And he told Kirk Douglas, this would be a great film. You might want to read this. There might be a film in this. And so we can take it back to this little dinner with Kirk Douglas and JFK, which would have been a dinner that I would have loved to have attended and been a fly on the wall at. But keeping that in mind, this is supposed to come out in December of 1963. Mm-hmm. So let's look at timing. The first full-page ad that hit the New York Times about this movie is published on November 22nd, 1963, the day JFK shot in Dallas. So the event is postponed because Burt Lancaster actually called the studios and said, we cannot have this come out in December. It needs to be pushed into the 1964 year. And they listened and they pushed it to 1964. This movie also has kind of a little Twilight Zone feel because Rod Serling is involved in the writing of this film. So if you're a Twilight Zone fan, here's a Rod Serling piece that you would really enjoy too. And I'm a Twilight Zone guy. So this one really piqued my interest. I think I saw it. Oh, it was years ago, a few years ago. I saw it for the first time and I was like, wow, this one really flew under my radar. And I love the writing and I love what it was talking about. And this idea of being upset with the way the president has been handling things, and now there's a military coup possibility, and everyone's behind it except like the Navy. The Navy was the only one who wasn't behind it. So I really like this one. So this is my number 3 choice.
That's a fantastic pick, and this was on my menu as well. I suspect we'll have some crossover in that regard. But the casting is just impeccable. Frederick March as the president giving a tour de force performance. And it's interesting. I didn't know the story about JFK recommending the book to Kirk Douglas at dinner. And perhaps there was a little bit of Bay of Pigs after flavor that Kennedy was experiencing. Like, maybe I can't trust these generals. So it's interesting that that was on Kennedy's list because one could certainly very well make the argument that he did not have the trust in his generals that he did after April 1961 as he did before. So that's some interesting historical background. And so, too, is it worthwhile to point out, and I don't know if this is one of your additional picks later on or not, but 2 years earlier, John Frankenheimer also directed The Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah.
So both of those have to deal with conspiracy and assassination to some extent. So I think one could very well credit John Frankenheimer. His movies bookend the Kennedy assassination, one in 1962 and one in 1964. Little wonder that Americans bought into conspiracy theories about the president's death, with popular movies like these helping to fuel the flames in popular culture.
Yeah, that's an amazing point. Yeah, I didn't think about that bookending of Frankenheimer's pieces, but yep, that's exactly right. So I'm going to open the poll up in the chat. There's a few of you in here. Thank you for being here. If you get a moment, please let me know what you think in the chat there. And we will go into our number 2 pick after a few minutes here. Jared, what else is going on in your sphere? What's happening? Any new videos that you're thinking about doing? Anything you want to cover? What's going on?
Oh, there's always too much going on in my sphere. Every semester I go, okay, things are going to cool down this time, and they never do. So I'm working on a few things. I'm trying to find a publisher for my doctoral dissertation, which was an examination of the Gettysburg battlefield and the meaning of Gettysburg during the Second World War. I think that it will be a very surprising read to Civil War buffs and World War II buffs alike. In my view, though, the greatest strength, I think, is a weakness in the eyes of many publishers, because they're kind of like, oh, is it a Civil War book or is it a World War II book? And I'm like, that's the beauty of it. Like, you have a double your audience. Yeah. And so it's been an interesting conversation and challenge in that regard, trying to find a home, but we'll get there. I'm also working on a book that I've kind of designed for my Pennsylvania history class, because I felt that there really wasn't a good comprehensive history of Pennsylvania that was accessible to the likes of college students or the general public, for that matter. And so I am compiling an eyewitness history of Pennsylvania, going from the mid-1600s up to the present. It's 100 firsthand accounts in 20 different chapters of the state's history. And I'm going to use that as the basis for primary source activities in the classroom, and hopefully general readers and other educators will find immense use for it as well. But we're always looking ahead on Real History as well, my YouTube channel. And I'll give your viewers a special sneak peek first time. And tomorrow, hopefully, we will have out a review of Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So perfect tie-in with our conversation on the 1960s here on the Tattooed Historian.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I haven't seen that yet. So between now and tomorrow evening, I have to watch it.
Oh, it won't disappoint.
Yeah, I have to watch that. I know it's on like a Plex server that I have available to me, so I have to watch that movie.
Have a good snack and enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to that. I need a new movie to watch, so there it is. That'll be that one tomorrow. My Friday night watch. So looks like we don't have any voters tonight. We have a lot of viewers, but no voters. That's okay. You may not want to vote tonight. That's fine. I am on board with just talking about this. We'll try again later. So we got to go into the next round. So again, our first round was Jared has North by Northwest for his number 3 pick. And I picked 7 Days in May. So we're going to move forward here. Bob's in here going to say 7 Days in May is specifically a Cold War movie. North by Northwest, the Cary Grant character could just as easily have been flying to elude an FBI trying to arrest him unjustly. Hey, there's some overlap here going on.
There you
go. There's going to be some more here in a few minutes, probably. We have to go into the next round for pick number 2. I should have made this pick number 3 because there's 3.
There you go. I thought it was a flower at first. There we go. Yeah, quite not. Yeah. And I'll preface this by saying I can't really rank these. I think they're all really strong in their own way. And I could have picked a half a dozen others as well. It was kind of like picking them out of a hat for me at this point. But my next one is one that I'm fairly fond of, just because I think it's a very different sort of Cold War movie, and that is the 2001 film 13 Days, which chronicles the 2 weeks of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And in this film, I think actor Bruce Greenwood, who, in my view, didn't get enough starring roles throughout his career. He's always been relegated to kind of a strong supporting character, but he really is in the limelight in this movie. And even though he doesn't look 100% like Kennedy, I don't think many people could. He really captures the accent and the mannerisms of Kennedy, and how he interacts with the supporting cast. I really think is what makes this an impeccable film. I think one could make the argument that his New England accent is a little bit stronger than Kevin Costner's New England accent in this film. But what I really like about the movie 13 Days is that even though it takes some creative liberties and it adds some tension where perhaps there wasn't, overall, I think it does a really good job of encapsulating the pressure and some of the political and international dynamics of those really tense 2 weeks in October 1962, where humanity was brought to the brink. I think some of its weaknesses, and a lot of historians have been like-minded on this issue, is that it elevates the importance of Kennedy's advisors depicted in the film, especially Costner's character in the form of Kenneth O'Donnell, who some might say was kind of a glorified clerk within the Kennedy administration. But in the film, he is depicted as one of the foremost presidential advisors. And he's making phone calls and arranging things with people that he in real life would not have. But there were those who were actually in the Kennedy administration, Robert McNamara among them, who actually gave this movie fairly high marks. He said, okay, Kenny O'Donnell's role is a little bit overinflated, but it really sort of captures the essence of what we were all feeling in that moment. And so I think taking that into consideration, that it earned some fairly high marks. And the fun other little bit of trivia I'll point out here in that regard, going back to Bruce Greenwood, is that he has also played Robert McNamara as well in the Steven Spielberg movie The Post, which looks at the Pentagon Papers and a lot of the fallout. We could consider that to be a Cold War film as well. But one of the other weaknesses of the film, I would say, is that we get no perspective of what's happening in Moscow or Havana simultaneous with this. Now, you can say from a narrative perspective, keeping it insulated and somewhat claustrophobic builds up the cinematic tension, but at the same time, maybe a little bit of international perspective would have been helpful as well, because certainly Nikita Khrushchev was feeling a lot of the same strain and pressure that Kennedy was. But I saw this film in theaters when it came out. It's one of the earliest historical films that I can remember seeing on the big screen. And it really packed a punch on the big screen, seeing it with a large group of people who were likewise on the edge of their seats. So if you haven't seen this one, I too think that you will be on the edge of your seat, even if you know how it ends.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites too. It was one of those things where, is it going to be in my top 3 tonight? Or maybe it's in my top 3 tomorrow night. You know, there's so many good ones. This is one of those where it was like, it's definitely my top 5 all the time. But I really, really like this movie. I know some of my friends said it's too long, but I'm like, no, it's. I understand there may be some slow parts to it, but you know, it's got a good narrative and it's just a really good piece. It also made me think about the fact that Kevin Costner's involved in another JFK movie, you know, because he did JFK, and it's like, does he? I don't know if you've ever heard any interviews with him about this movie or not, but I don't know if he has like a soft spot for Kennedy where he wants to talk more about Kennedy's legacy or Kennedy's life or whatever the case may be, but he's involved in 2 JFK movies. And I always wondered if there's a connection there with that person and him. But I don't know. I don't know if you've ever heard anything about that, but I thought that when I watched it, I'm like, wow, Costner's doing another JFK movie.
Yeah, exactly. 10 years later, too. Yeah, I haven't heard any interviews, him speaking about this film. This movie falls into somewhat of a void in his career. In the early 2000s, his career was in a little bit of a slump after he had gone through some somewhat difficult times with the likes of Waterworld and The Postman and this and that. He's been on quite the roller coaster throughout his career. And I think this one deserves a little bit more prestige than what it got in real time or how it's remembered.
Yeah, I grew up on a lot of courtroom and political thrillers. That's what my grandfather watched all the time, and I'd be sitting in front of the TV watching that. So this one fit right in with that one. When it came out, it was kind of like a throwback to my childhood, which really made it interesting for me. So this is a great pick. So this one is my number 2 pick is one that I have often passed on to other people and told them, you need to see this film. You need to really understand what's going on in this film and what's being talked about. It's also now something that we saw live on television a few months ago. That's Good Night and Good Luck. One of my favorite movies in general, probably a top 10 favorite movie. I really like this film. So this was brought out in 2005. So you can think of everything going on in America in 2005, where we just had the invasion of Iraq, and are there weapons of mass destruction? Are there not? So you're starting to get this kind of look back at the legacy of legacy media or mass media, 24-hour news. Should we be having 24-hour news, or should we go back to the old Edward R. Murrow / Walter Cronkite / whomever era of evening news, and the rest of the day you have some other powerful pieces about other things. So 2005, we have a lot of that going on, and this comes out, and I probably saw this 6 months after it came out or so. This focuses on the theme of media responsibility, but also addresses the concerns of when journalism in the United States offers a voice of dissent against government policies. Again, going back to 2003 to 2005 era. It's the early 1950s. This is the era of McCarthyism. It's running wild in America. Edward R. Murrow and his producer, Fred Friendly, decide to push back against this terror of the Red Scare in the early 1950s. And that starts this whole fantastic story that becomes this piece. Directed by George Clooney, who just did the stage performance as Edward R. Murrow, was live on CNN a number of weeks ago. And I always get his last name wrong. Is it David Strathairn? Strathairn, right?
The first one, Strathairn, is how I've always pronounced it.
Yeah, I always get it backwards. He plays Edward R. Murrow, and the film also stars Jeff Daniels, Patricia Clarkson, Robert Downey Jr., Frank Langella, and more.
Great supporting cast.
A fantastic cast in this, and something I did not know was that George Clooney majored in journalism in college. His dad was a journalist. And so this was a good fit for George Clooney. And it's also a nice segue into why he would then take on the role of Murrow on stage. This is in his wheelhouse. This was nominated for 6 Academy Awards and didn't win one, sadly, but it was nominated. Something that I found out was really interesting. One criticism about the film amongst the people who were in the test audience was they believed the actor who was playing McCarthy was acting over the top, and it was actually video of McCarthy
himself.
Yeah. It's like, no one's playing McCarthy. That is Joe McCarthy. The film was originally also shot in color, and then during editing, it was like a, I forget what they called it. It wasn't like Technicolor, like, color. It was like a kind of
desaturated.
Saturated color. And then they edited it to black and white for a more environmental flair of the era. I also liked how there were musical interludes inside this piece, because then it's kind of like a stage performance. You're getting a little bit of you can see the set is moving behind the scenes. You can think about it that way while the musical performance is going on. And so it adapts really well to stage because of that. It also makes a great soundtrack because now you have all this stuff that's been going on. It's like being inside of a radio / news organization in their studios, because there would be, you know, a studio portion that would be doing the musical end of things. There would be the portion doing the video end of things or film end of things. So it was really a cool environment to see being played out in numerous ways on this piece. And one that I really think is timeless, and some questions that we still have about what is the responsibility of a journalist. When does a journalist become an opinion spokesman for opinion instead of journalism, et cetera, et cetera? We're still having these arguments, disagreements. Some people didn't like Murrow because they thought he went too far in going out against McCarthy. Some people thought that he was, you know, a hero because of that. And you could probably find people on both sides of those equations even today. So it's a piece that we can still have great discussions about in a classroom environment or in a pub. Yeah, absolutely. Great pick. And I'm sad to say I missed the live performance on television a few weeks ago. Perhaps I can catch it somewhere. But when I heard about that, it didn't surprise me because George Clooney has a real fondness for that old style of television. He was also in a live television production that was a remake of the Cold War movie Failsafe about 25 years ago. And it was introduced by none other than Walter Cronkite before it went on the air. So imagine Walter Cronkite introducing a live George Clooney production in black and white on television. That too is another really good choice. But yeah, George Clooney's dad grew up as a newsman in Lexington, Kentucky. And Nick Clooney, his dad, has made cameos in a number of his son's films, including The Monuments Men. And as a perfect tie-in back to the movies, Nick Clooney was also the host of American Movie Classics back in the day when they showed legit old movies. So it kind of goes full circle here in that regard. And in that capacity, believe it or not, I met Nick Clooney once. I met George Clooney's dad. Wow. At the Jimmy Stewart Museum back in 2008. Wow. So there's my personal connection to the story. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, he ran for Congress too, didn't he? I think so, yeah. I think he didn't make it, but he ran for Congress, I think. Yeah. I don't remember when that was early 2000s, I believe. Yeah, really interesting story, you know, with that. Fascinating family. Yeah, exactly. So the poll is open once again, everybody, if you so desired to vote in that. Jared, are you still doing some interpretive stuff in uniform and stuff like that? Yeah, I still do living history now and again. And interestingly enough, over the past year, I've been wearing more hats than what I historically have. My brother is the fairly new education director at the Pennsylvania Military Museum. And so I quite naturally get roped into helping him at various events. And so for Memorial Day weekend, I was in a Civil War uniform. About 2 weeks ago, for the first time ever, I was in a Vietnam era uniform portraying a civilian combat correspondent. And I still do World War II living history a few times a year as well. That's great. Yeah, that's yeah, I put the right one up. Yeah, it's great to hear that. I saw some of the photos, and I don't know if I saw the one of you in Vietnam era stuff. I'd have to go back and look. But yeah, I remember starting to do that in the early 2000s, and for some people, it's still a little too fresh.
Yeah.
You know, so 20 years later, it would be a little bit easier to digest. But I think things come in like a 30-year cycle, because now we're starting to see more interpreters do like Persian Gulf War stuff. But I'm like, well, it's 30 plus years. And yeah, it's interesting to see that dynamic too, of what is acceptable as far as interpretive displays are concerned when you're wearing the stuff or portraying somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I try to, I wanted to portray a combat correspondent because I wanted to show a little bit of nuance and some of the complexity that the Vietnam War was. And so I, in essence, allow visitors to make up their own minds. I show them some covers of Life magazine, which sometimes reflected on the war in a very positive light. Like, we're here, we're trying to do good. You know, we're trying to save this village, et cetera, et cetera. But it just so happened that the event that we were doing, it fell exactly on the 60th anniversary of Mike Wallace's famous, or no, not Mike Wallace. I'm forgetting the reporter's name now. He was on 60 Minutes.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
I'm forgetting his name now. I'm ashamed to say. It'll come to me as soon as we go off the air. But I showed a news clip, a CBS news clip of a Vietnamese village being burned by Marines. And so that was something that really caught the attention of a lot of American TV goers back in 1965. And so, you know, just putting primary sources out there, let people draw their own conclusions, I think is a really healthy way to look back at the complexity of the war.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's awesome. I never had a chance to do an impression like that. So that's really cool. And with my current research in media studies and how we consume media from conflict zones, that would be right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Morally Safer was the name it came to me.
That's it.
Yeah. That's him. Yep.
I remember Morally Safer. Yeah, I could see him, but I couldn't think of the name.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Apparently the poll is just not working tonight. I'm getting people messaging me saying, I voted. Why isn't it showing up? So sorry about that, everybody. YouTube is having a hiccup tonight with the polls. So we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to say Jared won each one. And we're going to go into our favorite Cold War movie. It is time for numero uno for at least tonight. Tomorrow night, it might be a different one. But this is ours for tonight. So Jared, take it away for your number one pick, my friend.
Yeah, and this was a hard one, but I chose a more recent one, and I decided to pick a Steven Spielberg film entitled Bridge of Spies, which looks at the James Donovan adventure throughout the early 1960s. And in some ways, I think this is a good companion piece to North by Northwest, because you have this sort of hesitant anti-hero who's kind of physically past his prime, who gets pulled into these events beyond his control, but he becomes a willing and eager participant in it once he comes to realize the stakes. And so James Donovan was the lawyer who was appointed to the defense of communist spy Rudolph Abel, who was apprehended in New York in the year 1957. This is a case that goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and all of this is depicted with meticulous Steven Spielberg detail in the film. But it's ultimately referred to, the movie is, The Bridge of Spies, due to the fact that, spoiler alert, Rudolph Abel is traded for downed U-2 American spy pilot Francis Gary Powers in February of 1962. And the still image of the movie is that moment that is depicted here. And I really like this film, and I think it's a mixture of spy caper. It's a story of political intrigue. It shows an interestingly empathetic view of the bad guy in the film, Rudolph Abel. And as Donovan's character expressed in the historical record and in the movie, this man isn't a bad man. He's doing his duty just as our spies do their duty. And I think it has such a great sense of nuance in looking at the Cold War culture of the late 1950s and the early 1960s. What does loyalty mean? What are the expectations of citizens during times of pressure like this? And of course, Tom Hanks carries the day as the reluctant hero, as he does in almost all of his movies. So Bridge of Spies comes out in 2015. And a really good follow-up to that, a book that came out afterward, is written by Francis Gary Powers Jr., entitled Spy Pilot. And in the book, as he recounts his father's travails, and also I think one could say tries to redeem his record a little bit, he actually talks about the making of the movie a little bit. You know, the Powers family was very apprehensive at first, because they thought that their dad's name was going to be smeared, that he was going to look or appear as some sort of enemy collaborator or such. But as it turns out, they were quite pleased with the final product that Bridge of Spies was.
It's such a good movie. Such a good movie. And anytime Tom Hanks is involved in a historical movie, I'm watching it. Anytime he's involved in any movie, really, I'm watching it. But I don't know, that it's kind of like it's one of those things where when I see Hanks is involved or Spielberg is involved, it's going to be something that I watch every time because I respect their work, and they're just two people who I admire. And I've always dreamed of just meeting Tom Hanks and just thanking him for doing such amazing stuff, because as a historian, and you may feel the same way, it's like he's opened doors to conversations with people maybe we wouldn't have had opened without a movie that he's done or an interview about a movie that he's done. It's just he's one of our fantastic allies in that fight.
Yeah, no, I don't exaggerate when I say this. I don't think since Bruce Catton has any American done more for the promotion of American history as Tom Hanks has done over the last 30 years. Ever since Forrest Gump and Apollo 13 and From the Earth to the Moon, the majority of his movies are historical in nature in one form or another. The same is also true, oddly enough, of Leonardo DiCaprio. If you look at his filmography, every movie that he's made since Titanic, almost all of them take place during a historical setting. Very few of them don't. So really interesting to think about.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. I said we had 6 great ones, and this is just proving it. These are really good lists. And I'll put the final list up at the end on the final slide, so you all can get a good list together for your viewing pleasure this weekend. Go into some Cold War stuff this weekend. But for me, my first choice has to be Dr. Strangelove. Got to be the one. It's got to be Kubrick. It's got to be Dr. Strangelove. And you know, it just has to be Peter Sellers. So because of this film, 1964. So we're going back again to the 60s. As I said, directed by Stanley Kubrick. George C. Scott in a role that he did not like doing at the time. He thought it was too silly and weird, but it became one of his most beloved performances. That he out of his own mouth, he said that he understood it later and appreciated it later. As General Turgidson, Peter Sellers, pictured here, played 3 parts. Dr. Strangelove, Group Captain Mandrake, and President Muffley. Slim Pickens was on board, Major T.J. King Kong, and even a young James Earl Jones, which a lot of people don't realize James Earl Jones is in this. And yeah, he's in there with Slim Pickens in the B-52.
Yeah.
So you want to see a young James Earl Jones, there you go. You got to go to Dr. Strangelove. So we have a Brigadier General Jack D. Ripper is stationed at Burleson Air Force Base, and he says that the Soviets are putting fluoride in the American water system to basically turn everybody communist or die. One of the others, poison. They're poisoning the system. Acting on this belief, he initiates a nuclear attack on the Soviet Union using a backdoor mechanism without the knowledge of his superiors, including Turgidson and the Joint Chiefs and the president. Only Ripper knows the code to recall the B-52 bombers, and he's cut off all communication and to protect this attack. And we have a lot of activity going on in the Pentagon War Room, which is my favorite scene throughout this entire thing. I love the war room scenes. They're just something I picture when I think of Dr. Strangelove. Is just this ginormous table and the maps and George C. Scott in there going crazy. In this
you can't fight in here. It's the war room.
That's right. Beautiful key line there. In the Pentagon War Room, we have President Muffley, we have Turgidson, we have a nuclear scientist and advisor, Dr. Strangelove, a former Nazi. They're discussing ways to stop the attack, mitigate its escalation, prevent an all-out nuclear war with the Soviets. And against Turgidson's wishes, Muffley brings Soviet Ambassador Alexei Dostoevsky into the war room, and they contact the Soviet premier and to inform him of the situation, which that entire interaction is amazing in itself. Just that telephone call with the Soviet premier it's one of those things you could just take that 3-minute portion and put it up somewhere, and you can just come to your own conclusions about what is going on. The Americans are dismayed to learn that the Soviets actually have a doomsday machine a doomsday device that will detonate if any key targets are hit. So Ripper, Mandrake, and those in the war room work towards their respective goals. However, Slim Pickens he's more interested in dropping the bomb and decides to do that. And you can see that amazing picture of Slim Pickens riding a nuclear bomb to his demise. It's considered one of the best comedies ever made, as well as one of the most influential films, American films of all time. The film's narrative is based on a 1958 novel called Red Alert. There's some activity they weren't supposed to be doing for this film. While shooting aerial footage over Greenland, the second unit camera crew actually stumbled upon a U.S. military base. It was a secret one, and their plane was told to come down. It was forced down, and the crew is suspected of being Soviet spies for this. So Cold War era stuff going on for a Cold War movie. Peter Sellers actually improvised most of his lines. So he's kind of doing like a Robin Williams thing in this movie, which I think is just mind-blowing, that he's just riffing. And because I've always loved Robin Williams because he would just riff. Peter Sellers is doing that in this. And Kubrick actually says, quote, Peter said he couldn't promise to do the same thing twice, and he couldn't do anything more than 2-3 times. So the day we did the sequence, like this sequence here, I had 6 cameras lined up, and he came in, and no one knew what he was going to do, himself included. And I think that's a beautiful thing because I love improv, and I love just someone being in the moment. I'm also someone who, when you give me a script to read, I cannot remember it. So you just tell me what you want me to talk about, and I'll just go. So I understand that kind of mentality. And I have a lot of appreciation for someone who can do that on a film in character. And yeah, this is the one for me that is my number 1 pick.
Bravo. I mean, it's one that was certainly on my list of maybes, but I suspect that you might have chosen it. But yeah, I mean, the part where Dr. Strangelove in the final scenes is he's in the wheelchair. He's trying to bite his hand to stop himself from giving a Nazi salute, and you can see all the if you look closely, you can see the actors behind him like biting their lip, trying desperately not to laugh and break character, especially when he's like biting his leather hand. It's just comedy gold. Yeah,
I'm cured. It's just so good. Yeah, I remember watching it the first time, and I'm like, I cannot believe I've waited this long to watch this movie. But yeah, it's really really one of my favorites. Want to put up the final list here, and I also want to give some shout outs to people who are hanging out with us. Steve Fan is in the house. What is going on, Steve? Nice to see you here, buddy. Hope you're doing well. We got some votes in the chat for Doctor Strangelove. Thank you for that. But we had someone bring up where was it at? Where was it at? Where was that? Oh, here it is. Bob, I'd vote for Strangelove, but it transcends military tensions. My pick is the Manchurian Candidate, what you just brought up earlier, Jared. Ties with very different but extraordinarily bleak failsafe. Thank you, Bob, for being here.
I was just going to bring these up as honorable mentions, so Bob has good taste.
Yeah. What we got here? On the Beach deserves an honorable mention. So does The Best Man. Mm-hmm. We're getting some good honorable mentions in the chat here, everybody, or bringing your own list of top 3. This is great. Thank you for being here and doing this. This means more to me than the vote try. I want to see you in here.
Yeah, great one. The Best Man, Henry Fonda, Cliff Robertson, written by Gore Vidal.
Oh,
yeah,
I haven't seen that.
Which has the biting political tension as during a presidential convention.
I haven't seen that. I didn't know Gore Vidal wrote that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Wow. The live version of Failsafe from 2000. Ooh.
That's the George Clooney one that I mentioned a little bit ago. Yep.
Yeah. The George Clooney one of Good Night and Good Luck is available on YouTube.
Okay.
Well. I think CNN posted the entire. It was a live stream, and I think they posted the entire thing. So if anyone's interested in that, you can go on the CNN and check that out.
Yeah, any more 2000 version? Richard Dreyfuss played the president, and just like the original, it was a great ensemble cast. Sam Elliott was in it as well. Just good cast.
Wow. Any other honorable mentions, Jared, you can think of?
Those were some of the ones that I had in mind. Since you used it in the thumbnail, I think we have to mention the death of Stalin as well. Which is kind of right up there with a very bleak Cold War parody. Especially when Jason Isaacs does the slow motion thing and all of his medals rattle. That's quite iconic.
Steve Buscemi's still acting like Nucky at certain times.
Yeah.
It's my favorite Steve Buscemi film. It really is. He nailed that part. But yeah, there's so many. It's not a cast where it just works, and each of them has their own little things to make the story pop with comedy. And I love that movie. That's probably in my top 5.
Yeah,
honestly.
And it's amazing to think how many Cold War comedies there are, including ones that were made in the moment. There's another really fun one called The Russians Are Coming. The Russians Are Coming, where a Soviet sub breaks down off the coast of New England, and mayhem ensues as these Russian sailors start having interactions with the local lobstermen and fishermen and whatnot. So that's one of Alan Arkin's early roles. He plays one of the officers aboard the Soviet sub. Carl Reiner is in it.
Oh, wow.
And it has a beautiful ending that is very surprising.
Wow. That's neat. I like Carl Reiner. He's great. I'm not surprised Red Dawn didn't make it. It's kind of like, I'm not a gung-ho kind of person for that. We got some other ones, though. We had Hunt for Red October pop up in here. Classic. Obviously, that came up in our top 3 sub movies. Obviously, that has come up. Ice Station Zebra.
Oh, yeah.
The President's Analyst.
Oh, yeah. I think that's another Peter Sellers one, if I recall correctly. I might be misremembering that one.
Oh, GoldenEye.
GoldenEye, yeah. Any James Bond movie made between the 60s and early 90s.
Yeah. I have a confession to make. I have never seen a Bond movie in my life.
Oh, wow.
Never saw a Bond movie.
I would recommend starting off with Goldfinger. Okay. I think Goldfinger is kind of the quintessential 1960s Bond movie, and it's the most fun.
Okay.
So, while we're on the topic of the 60s, check out Goldfinger.
Yeah, yeah. Which Bob, what are you talking about here? James Coburn.
Oh yes, James Coburn. Yep, my mistake. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, we have some movie fans in the chat.
Yeah, great. These are my people.
Yeah. So you're getting ready for your term to start. I'm getting ready for comps to start soon. So this is why we're doing some more top threes and live streams, because this keep my sanity going while we're doing.
It's an important thing to do.
Now we have more movies to watch, or at least I do. You've seen them all probably, but
mostly,
yeah, yeah. Part of your.
But I want to revisit some now. Like, I bet it's been a good decade or more since I've watched Good Night and Good Luck, and I have that on my DVD shelf. And our conversation here makes me want to revisit it. So yeah,
that's great. One last question: Do you believe in getting the hard copies?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
No, people get the hard copies.
With both my books and my movies, I am a stalwart disciple of physical media, because they can't take it away from you. They can't edit it, and it has all sorts of great extra features that aren't available on streaming. So yeah, when I buy something, I like to actually own it. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of physical media, and I encourage all true film aficionados to do the same.
I'm very much that way with books. I need to get back in that way with other media types, because I used to have a ton of DVDs. Now I don't, or Blu-rays. Now I don't, just because of moving and all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
I need to do that, because obviously sometimes my favorite film, or a film that I would love to have in my collection, it gets ripped down in some random month of the year, and then it's gone. And so it's good to be able to get the physical copies. I just asked a friend, he has a Plex server. I said, would you be able to get the blue and the gray for me? Because I remember that classic blue and the gray. And he's like, is there any movies you want? I'm like, how about this? And he couldn't find it because no service had it digitized even.
Yeah.
So he has to go to the local library and get a hard copy, which, if you can't afford hard copies, people, go to your local library. Don't forget libraries, and you can find
order them for you from another library if they don't have it.
Yeah, interlibrary loan, so
at least for now, while libraries are still open.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully. Here in Canada, we're fine right now, but you never know. You never know. But I'm so appreciative of your time tonight, Jared. Thank you so much for an amazing list. We got, like I said to everybody in the chat, you have 6 more to watch if you haven't watched them. If you have, rewatch them and think about the thesis and the message being brought across in them. But Jared, it really means a lot that you're here. I'm so happy to have you on, my friend.
Oh, thank you. It's always great to catch up with you, especially now that you're up in the great north. Thank you for all you for tuning in. We welcome you to hop over to Real History. We'll have a new episode out tomorrow that reflects on a lot of these themes from the 1960s. And I will also be at the Eisenhower National Historic Site World War II weekend, which is September 20th and 21st. And so if you're in the area and you'd like to chat in person, look me up at that event.
Awesome. It's an amazing event, everybody. I've been an interpreter there. I've had the honor of being a speaker there. So please go check out the Eisenhower Farm event. It's a great World War II event. It was my first World War II event back in the day. And it has a place in my heart because of that. It's old home week for a lot of us. So go check it out. Go see Jared there. Say hello. Let him know that his picks were better than mine. And enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody. I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe as well. I know we all tell you that, but it really does help if you at least like it and comment. You've been commenting all night. Do the same on Jared's work. Share that out with your friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, because it really does mean a lot to us to be able to make this history more accessible and be able to get good voices out there for more people to see in their feeds. Again, everybody, thank you so much for your time tonight. Have a great evening. Be well. Keep reading. Keep learning. I'll see you next time.
Stay curious.